Okay, welcome back. Yes, indeed, the much talked about tax reform bill before the National Assembly is what we're starting off with this morning. We're joined by Dr. Sam Ohuabunwa, who is the President, African Economic Summit Group. He joins us virtually. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, so there's been a lot of back and forth about this proposed tax bills, which before the National Assembly. Now, 4 of those were sent to NAS. It's before them now. Who knows if they're going to withdraw it? So you've got the Nigerian tax bill, Nigeria Tax Administration bill, Nigeria Revenue Service bill, and then the Joint Revenue Board, that's establishment bill before the National Assembly. I know the critical component of this, the bone of contention now, is this derivation via VAT, which northern governors met and said, well, they're not comfortable with that provision. NEC recently is advising the federal government to withdraw the bill. They use the word wider consultation. Yes, you might have heard a thing or two about it. What do you think of it?
Well, first and foremost, I think that we shouldn't put putting the cart before the horse or before the cart. This is a federation, and it is right for the federal government to consult with the constituent groups, the federating units, when they are putting policies that are cross-cutting, that affects the entire federation. It's not right for the federal government to take its rules without taking into consideration the concerns and the feelings of the constituent groups, the the federating units. So that is one. Number 2, the other thing that NEC is doing what it ought to do, which is to marry and reconcile the efforts given the constituents and those who are in NEC of the interest of the entire nation. The federal government executive, of course, especially this particular government, is very desirous to drive up tax revenue, to block up the revenue gaps we have in our budget. But in doing so, they need also to be careful, not only to be more consultative, but also to listen to what the people are saying. For me, I do not even think there should be any argument on this derivation problem. I always feel sad each time issues to discuss about derivation, restructuring, and some of northern elites or governors act as if they are disadvantaged, as if they are unfairly treated. I really do not buy into that, because I believe that every state, and I stand on that, every state of Nigeria can survive on its own. I believe so. God has endowed every state not only with solid minerals, not only with arable land, fertile land, not only with educated and able, hardworking people, every state of Nigeria. I think problem sometimes that we don't want to be weaned from milk. We also don't want to, we follow the least line of resistance.
Yes.
I believe that every state can do well, no matter what, as long as the policies are equitable, every state can do well. What the government needs to do is to look at the overall revenue, allocation, revenue, derivation, and be able to appropriate it the way it was done in the pre or post-independence, when the states or the regions kept a significant portion of their revenue, put some into the federal, and then also put some into the distributable pool, so that those who are disadvantaged can also get some benefit from others. It's
just so we can get an understanding of what because this derivation-based model for value-added tax distribution, just so we can get an understanding of what that means. What does that mean for states generally? And in the explanation of what that means, maybe we can be able to see where the northern governors may be having some issues. And now it's not just the northern governors, by the way, the entire National Economic Council. They are saying that this should be withdrawn. Just walk us through what this derivation-based model for value-added tax distribution means.
It talks nothing but simple equity, justice, and fair play. To whom much is given, much is given. The more you invest, the more you reap. the less you invest, the less you reap. These are natural laws. They are laws of investment. They are laws of nature. If you are deriving more VAT from your region, from your state, you should get more. It shouldn't be equally shared, because that is a disincentive. Anywhere you share things equally, you encourage laziness. You encourage laying back and taking advantage. So I think the law of derivation, the principle is that if you give more, you get more. If you invest more, you get more. If therefore you are bringing more money to the table, it means that your cost of production, which is the cost of bringing to the table, is higher. And therefore you need to be given proportionate of what you bring to enable you bring more. It's the only way institutions, corporations, nations survive. Treat everybody well, fairly, equitable, justice. I think that's what it's all about. You don't rob Paul to pay Peter. Monkey cannot walk and baboon will eat. Those principles are the things I think this law seeks to protect in principle. And I don't see why anybody should have problem, because
I think I don't know if you muted mistakenly.
I think you did. You may have. Can you check if you're muted? I think maybe unmute a bit before you continue. It's a lot better. Yes. Oh no.
Now, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, so let's do a follow-up before let's do a follow-up on that. So with many states, one of their fears may be, at least one thing I've heard when it has to do with at least with banks, really, is that a lot of the headquarters are not where people are consuming from is not where the headquarters are, and people will pay taxes from those headquarters. And in that case, states where these things are not located, they will be a bit disadvantaged. And then of course there's the fact that really, when we look at the states in Nigeria, while we push for governors to be able to, create more jobs, increase their internally generated revenue, using the resources in their states, many of these states believe that no, it's not evenly distributed. There are people who are more advantaged than we are. And in many cases, if you're saying that I can only get based on what I give, then you're basically putting me in the back foot. What do you make of that assertion?
Well, are you hearing me now?
Yes.
Okay, first and foremost, the issue of federation also makes allowance for the less privileged. It is natural, take care of your neighbor. That is why I said that in the revenue formula that was implemented in the regions, it was you get 50% derivation from what you produce. You give 25% for the federal government to run the common services like defense, like foreign relations and all that. Then you give 25% of what we call a distributable pool. From this distributable pool, every region, every state will get a benefit. So you are making allowance for those who are disadvantaged, but also making sure that you do not reward those who are not doing well and punish those who are doing well. That's the only thing that motivates performance in the world, is that people are rewarded for hard work. And I think we should all come clean on this, whether you're Southeast or not. I state and I stand that every state, before you came in this country, was doing better than many regions for a long time, with their cotton, with their granules, with their height and skin. And the East was doing well with their palm oil products, the West cocoa and timber and all that. So these things are still being sought out in the international markets. Secondly, we can put value into them and export them as value added. We need to challenge ourselves to be more productive. I would suggest that even oil money should be securitized like it's done in the Nordic countries. We should put them into an investment pool and only use the dividends to fund development. We have a lot of internal capacity that is not being actually harnessed, because we see the least line of resistance, which is oil and all that. So I think that if these policies can help us take a look back on overall revenue generation and motivation for production, so that we can be compelled and motivated to do more. That is what I think. The other issue, yes, if you let me land on that, on where the banks are located or not, that is not a problem. The banks work with technology. They can disaggregate what comes from where. If the tax office mandates, the entire revenue tax has the resources to see what comes from each state, so it can be disaggregated. So no, we are taxing production or consumption. This is a consumption tax.
I think one of the fears that we've heard from some economists, talking about this tax reform, increasing VAT collection avenues in the states, really, for many people, especially those who talk finances, they feel like, look, if you're increasing VAT collection, avenues, because of this reform, you might be in some way increasing inflation. The cost of food may go up, and then we may see a broadening of the poverty gap. What do you make of those fears that we're hearing from some economists?
Well, the truth of the matter is that it's a two-edged sword. This government is raising tax. In itself is not a bad thing. Actually, in this tax bill, who should be complaining? It should be the private sector, because the tax bill is about the private sector, taxing private people, taxing companies, taxing businesses, and all that. They are the ones who are being taxed with all these, raising tax left, center, and right, creating a levy in addition to company tax, in addition to all other taxes. The tax burden is increasing on businesses, but since the people are not yet complaining, let us be dealing with the one we're talking about, which is the states. Certainly, tax can, if you tax production, to be a disincentive for producing more. So our tax should be focused on consumption, which is why VAT is not terribly a bad one, because you're only taxing consumption. However, it has a disincentive because it increases the cost to the consumer. The consumer now has to pay more, and therefore, if the consumer has to pay more and his income is not increasing, what does he do? He drops from taking some of those things he used to have and pushes him further down to some level of poverty. It will cause a reprioritization. But the question is, if you get to the place where you are prioritizing essentials, then it becomes, do you want to take water or oxygen? Both of them are critical for survival. Good is that the tax is being phased. The increment is being phased. We started at low level, we're climbing, and we can quote that all other parts of the world have higher VAT rates. That's understandable, but then it's the level of development. What is the per capita income, or purchasing power in those countries? I believe that the VAT as a strategy for collecting revenue is what we recommend, taxing consumption, not production. But if you look at in that tax bill, there's a lot of tax that will have a negative influence on production, and I think we need to look at them critically, so we do not kill the what do they say, the thing that lays the golden egg. Yeah.
Well, if we could let's just give a little more background, which we highlighted in the opening when you say looking at it critically. Because if people are not too careful, you will not see or notice that there are actually 4 of those bills that were before the National Assembly at the moment. So the VAT part appears to be the standout one. So you have the Joint Tax Bill, the Tax Administration Bill. They are all 4 of them before the National Assembly as we speak. But according to Section 40 of the VAT Act, what we currently have at the moment, revenue distributed 15% to local government, 50% to state and FCT, 35% to local government, and then you get to see here that the state and local government reflect that derivation principle of at least 20%. But even though it wasn't written like this one, but if you have a deeper look, you will see that some of the factors that appear to influence distribution of this is 50% is based on equality, 30% based on population. And then 4% collection fee to FIRS, 2% to end custom service for import of VAT. But we remember sometime in 2021, Rivers State sued the federal government about this tax matter. And they won at that first instance. And then, which meant that if that had gone through, states will have the power to collect and administer tax, the VAT, sorry. But the FIRS appealed, and we know, as they say, the rest is history. So this now gives that impression as though, well, the southern part was angry the last time, some time ago. Now, northern governors met, and now it gives it a broader perspective. NEC also coming through with this. Now, having seen that, it's not just VAT aspect that is before the National Assembly. What would you tell those governors now who say, well, we'll draw this for wider consultation? Because this has been going on for a long time. It was submitted to the National Assembly a while ago. So why didn't come up with this at that point in time? You know, many don't know. So what would you tell them? Look, because something needs to happen so that this can be reformed and then the country functions better. Because if you ask them, okay, how long will this wider consultation be? Nobody knows. So what will your message be to them?
My message to the governors is that, look, we should bite the bullet. You know, all these things are symptoms of an unbalanced federation. We need to ask ourselves, what are we practicing? Is it a federation? Is it semi-autonomous? Is it a republic? What kind of system do we want? If it is federation, we need to restructure every part of it. And the major thing is to give greater power, greater independence to the federating units, so that power resources are not concentrated in the federal government as they are. All these stresses and stressors are coming from that imbalance, which happened when the military, unilaterally, streamlined everybody to act as if we were in one command and control organization. I think that the governors, and I think this particular government has a predisposition to restructuring and to reformatting, so that we can give more powers to the regions or the states, whatever we prefer to be the federating units. My advice is that they should come clean. Let's stop protecting undue advantages. Let's stop fighting, bringing everybody to be treated fairly and equitably. Many of us, all the states ought to have grown after many years. They ought to have developed capacity to eat strong meat instead of still depending on milk. So I don't want any state to act as if it cannot rise up to its demand of its people. But at the same time, the federal government should not take away everything and give the booms to the states or the local government. So this is the crux of the matter. The National Assembly should work with the NEC and the states and bring out a formula that first places the federation on a sound balance, a sound system, a sound level that each the constituent groups can operate. If you go to the countries who've borrowed this governance method from, the United States, for example, you go to and see how the counties, the local government, the cities, each constituent group is their source of income, their source of expenditure is well outlined to the minute detail. Nobody's arguing with which is state tax, which is local government tax, which is city tax, which is county tax. It is well established, and you go and see what they're doing with the money. Every day, something is happening. The day government begins to use our money very well, people will be more willing to pay the tax, and they live the way they want the rest of us to live. These are the issues, and both at the state and the federal level. So my advice is, let's sit down around the table and put things in a manner and take away prejudices, take away seeking privileges or entitlement, and look at issues and say, what is best for this country? How do we operate as a federation and live in peace with each other, making sure that our citizens are encouraged to be more productive and reap the benefits of that productivity instead of depending on oil, depending on some windfall from somewhere. This is not sustainable.
All right, we know you got a tight schedule, so we'll have to anchor at this point. Dr. Sam Ohuabunwa, President, African Economic Summit Group, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. God bless you.